Hello, welcome to your program Identities, your program that talks about your social, economic and political issues. Your host, Nyari Mashayamombe. Today talking to beautiful women here in the studio, where we're talking about the important issue about women participation in politics. But today specifically we want to talk about young women's political participation. I have the privilege of welcoming Glanis Changachirere. Glanis, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Nyari.
I also have a young woman, Vongai. Welcome to the program.
Thank you, Nyari.
Thank you. And a sister of mine, Carol, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Thank you. So ladies, we want to talk about the issue of young women political participation. Glanis, how does it look like?
So it's very interesting, Nyari, that we have a constitution that provides, for equality and non-discrimination,
right.
Particularly for us, also even in terms of age. But we have young women not being quite represented,
right.
In politics. Largely, number one is people who are engaging with politicians, profiling their issues,
right.
seeking them to be accountable. And then number two, we also don't have young women clearly represented in elected positions. So currently we have done a study to just establish how many young women we do have represented in elected positions,
right.
Focusing more at local government positions. And we only found out that out of, the almost 1,958 local councillors that we have,
right.
we have around 300 who are women in general.
Wow.
And then in terms of women below the ages of 35,
right.
we actually have around one or two.
Wow.
And largely out of the 99% wards that we have in this country, they do not have young women representation. So we realize that young women are still far, from being equally represented,
right.
but also in addition from even engaging politically,
right.
with political institutions and political office bearers. So that is quite, a sad reality for us.
And I know that there's so many issues that contribute to young women not participating in politics, that range from violence, issues of basically young women not being oriented to participate in public life. I want to come to Karen and say, why should young women participate in political processes?
Thank you, Nyari. Politics is a way of life.
Right.
I think we shouldn't separate ourselves to say that politics is something odd that we're not part of.
Right.
Politics is our everyday life. And I like what somebody says, that from the water coming out of your tap, that is politics.
Exactly.
From you getting out of your house to get a combi, that is politics. So young women, these are the issues that affect us as
right.
young women every single day.
Right.
So we need to have a say in who represents us. Politics is simply picking out somebody to represent you on the issues that affect you every day.
Right.
So we as young women, if we don't have a voice in the council, in National Assembly or even in Senate, then it means that the issues that affect us are not being raised and resolved as young women.
Right.
So this is why we need young women to participate and also to be actively involved in the politics themselves.
Thank you. I mean, you articulate the issues of why I think in our country people shy away from politics, right? As this animal that's so big, but the food that you eat is politics. The combi that you're going to take is politics. And Vongai, as a 21-year-old who's running for councillor in Hatfield, what triggered you to want to run for council?
Okay, thank you so much, Nyari. For me, it was I've got personal reasons, and
right.
there are also things which that's general that is happening in my ward. My personal reasons is that I believe that I want to be the change that I want to see, and I believe.
At 21, that's impressive.
Thank you. But
right.
really, like what she was saying, things that each and everything that we do in life is politics, and it doesn't really matter what age you are in. Because I can tell you, for instance, in my ward, Bagareku Hatfield, they can't even access council schools elsewhere. So for
why
me,
is that?
because there's a lot of things that go on behind the scenes. Ekuti my headmistress or my headmaster vanenge vachida kukonyerera kuti vakwanise kupinza vamwe vanhu vavo for ECD or for grade ones.
Right.
So now you find that the residents kunyange mwana ari 6 years ato inconvenienced just because of politics. And
Politics or corruption? Because we're talking about corruption, not politics.
Can we mix politics and can we
No,
not
I
mix?
think what you just defined is corruption, to say just because.
Yes.
Yes.
So you find that those are some of the issues that affect each and everyone. And for me, my personal reasons was that, like I said, that I wanted to be the change that I wanted to see, and I also believe that, in the next coming few years, if nothing is done politically, if there is no ideological clarity among young people, we are going to be having the same mess that we're having now, whereby, we have two big camps who are already in government, but who can't seem to work together. But at the end of the day, it is us, the residents, it is us, the ordinary citizens, who are suffering.
Right. And I know you're running as an independent candidate.
Yes.
But back to the issue, Glanis, of young women's political participation. And I know that our constitution actually talks about equal representation of women in politics. I know your organization has been so invested in the issue of young women. Why are you pushing for 25% 25% quota for young women to participate in politics?
So you put it so well, Nyari. And to begin with, we have been advocating for young women participation and also representation in political spaces. And we have been riding at the back of a very progressive constitution that actually provides, for gender equality and non-discrimination on the basis of age. However, we realize that because we have not engaged with legal bodies or government institutions that are supposed to then, provide the checks and balances in terms of the enforcement of the Constitution or even to implement the Constitution. We've realized that we continue to have gaps where this Constitution remains there and the young women continue underrepresented. So when we conducted this research, one of the recommendations from the research was actually, the need to advocate for a specific quota for young women, hence the 25% quota that we are talking about. So we know, and as part of a broader women's movement or women's rights, advocacy, we are pushing for a 50-50 representation of women, right? And then we're then coming in to say, out of that 50%, we want 25% to be young women under the ages of 35.
Which I think is a reasonable thing, because we have 50% women or so, and then the half of that we're saying the young women should participate to ensure that intergenerational.
Right. And then in addition to women constituting 52% of the population, we also realize that young people constitute 67%. So if you look at it that way, at the intersect of these two bigger populations are young women, because they fall under women and at the same time they are young. So we are saying, we cannot talk of development without ensuring that the voice of the largest population in the country is equally represented on the table.
Wow, there you had it, viewers. If you ever wondered why we need to invest in girls and young women, actually we just said that they are 67% of our population. That is something to think about, to chew about. Stay with us and we continue with the conversations as we go for the break. Hello viewers, and welcome back to your program Identities. Today we're talking about the 25% quota that is being suggested for young women to participate in politics. And before we went on the break, Glanis was actually already explaining to us what that means, how that transforms the life of young women. I want to come to you, Carol, and to say, what does it mean legally for young women to claim the 25%? And if we don't get that, what does it also mean?
According to our constitution, it articulates for what Glanis has been talking about, for equal participation and representation of women at all sectors. This means even in the private. Our constitution means that. So what it simply means is that women, including young women, our constitution is not specific in terms of separating women and young women. And this is why this suggestion is being put forward, that since young people constitute 67% of our population, then we should at least have 25% for the young women, so that we have that continuity within politics for women. So as it stands right now, as we all know, we have a women's quota, which expires at the end of 2023.
And thank you very much for mentioning that one. And I feel like I've heard some people say, now that it's expiring in the next, we are losing out. What does it mean? What does the Constitution say about equal representation? How do you translate that?
Okay, so my take on it was that the Constitution gave 60 seats for women, to say that it was sort of like a transition, to say that it gave us 50-50, that in the process of implementing our 50-50, we have an additional 60 seats for women within parliament. So that means that by the time it expires, we should be in a full broad, 50-50, we should be seeing the women there. But my worry is we will not be able to do that. As you can see from the recent primary results that came out of the political parties, we have less than 10% female representation, which means that in the next parliament, we're going to see less women than we had.
Is that legal or illegal? And if it's illegal, what action can the women in the country take to make sure that there is that representation?
The Constitution is clear. There shall be equal representation at all spheres. This means that even the political parties need to amend their constitution to reflect what is in the national constitution. And as we've suggested, other women have suggested that at the nomination court, if a political party puts forward names which are not representative of the 50-50, they should be rejected because it is in violation of the national constitution. And this is what we want to see. We want to see the women within the political parties themselves talk about the issue of 50-50. We want to see the women at a national level also raise the issue of 50-50 because it is something that is provided for.
Glanis, sorry, I'm going to come to the young woman, but Glanis, I feel like this is a poignant time to say, as the young women were running with this issue of 50-50, Carol is already pointing out the issue of legality. What is your organization and the women's movement prepared to do to make sure that the law is respected around this issue?
You are right, Nyari, about that. This is just the perfect time, for us to be having this conversation and debate. Because, like Carol said, the Constitution is not so clear in terms of separation between, young women and elderly women in terms of their representation. However, it provides a guiding framework where it talks of, gender equality and non-discrimination, age being one of the backgrounds to which discrimination should not happen. So, therefore, realizing this gap or rather opportunity and also realizing that as we are going into this election, we have seen primary elections that are not producing gender equality. There is an opportunity for us as women to then, hold ZEC accountable to say, as political parties bring their nominations, we want you to ensure that they're in compliance with the Constitution. And therefore what that means for young women now is we are already setting it clear to say, going forward, as ZEC perhaps responds to this, perhaps, constitutional court route that we take, we are also setting it clearly that we want 25% to be young women going forward, so that we already have a law that clearly articulates the need for gender equality, but in itself ensure that 25% of that 50% is going to young women.
Amazing articulation of this issue. How does it make you feel as a young woman to know that there's this work that's pushing for other young women? And secondly, do you feel like there is enough young women who are ready to take up the space that you've taken?
Okay, thank you so much, Nyari, for that. Hearing it from these two beautiful ladies,
amazing women.
It's really a breath of fresh air. It's something. It's very much applaudable. In terms of my feelings towards what's happening now in terms of women's representation. It's a bit slow, but I acknowledge the efforts that other young women are doing in their political parties. And for me, it's commendable. Rome wasn't built in a single day.
Right.
So for me, it's something. It's a step towards something.
Do you feel like there are enough young women who are ready to come on board to take up the 25%?
For me, there is need for much education on the woman's side of what it means to be running for office, of the roles of a councillor, of the roles of a member of parliament, because we can just be having, women coming in, young women coming in, yet they do not even have any knowledge on what they're expected to be doing when they're in those particular offices. So for now, yes, there are a few, but much more work needs to be done.
You had it for yourself, citizens. You had it, young women, the fathers, the mothers. This is a young woman who is running for office. Inspire your own child, inspire your own girls to run for office, to run for leadership. Don't go away. Stay with us. Identities will be right back in a moment. Welcome back, viewers, to your program Identities, Umhlobo Zvatiri, that talks about everything that concerns your life in an edutainment. Before we went on break, we were talking about the amazing issue of young women political participation, where I have Glanis Changachirere in the studio talking to us about her organization that's pushing for a quota system for 25%. And as we were talking earlier on with the young women, Vongai, who's also running for councillor position, Carol, we had that the young women are trickling in. Are there enough young women to take up this 25% that Glanis is talking about?
Nyari, thank you for that. This is something I'm very passionate about.
Right.
And I will contend that there are more than 25% of young women who want to take up political office. But like everything else in Zimbabwe, the face of politics, our nation, has to change for the environment to be conducive for young people to step forward. We have politics of parties, so you have to be within party A or party B for you to be able to at least be seen as a contender. And what I like, though, about the 2018 election, I think is a game changer, because I see more young women coming up as independents.
Exactly.
They refuse to identify with A or B and say, look, this is me as a young woman, and this is what I have to offer. And the people then can decide for themselves. But the young women are there. We need to change the face of our politics. We need to eliminate this aspect of violence from politics. We need to eliminate the scrutiny that goes around a woman when she runs for politics. Are you married, Nyari? Who's your father?
Period. The
what
other
do
person
you
was
do?
asked about their period.
Yes.
And the H word that we had being sung about on Dr. Coupe.
Yes, so there's a lot of toxicity within politics when it comes to a woman, and the scrutiny is even higher when you are a woman. So every woman, and there's also even young woman like myself who's married.
Right.
If I decide to run, I have to, ask, is it okay with my husband and his family and his entire clan? Do we want to have our name?
Do we really have to do that, Carol?
Yes, because the politics drags the entire family into this concept that they have not consented to go into. So our politics has to evolve from that aspect of I, Carol, decide to run for political office versus the whole clan of, the Kaches where I come from and the clan which I married into. Do they consent? Because it's their name up there as well. So when our politics moves from that, and it's just a decision that I have made to run as councillor or member of parliament, then a lot of young women are going to step forward. But I'm happy, and I'm sure Glanis will tell us that they have a whole constituency of young women who, in spite of all these issues going on, are willing to step forward.
Very true, Carol. And just coming back to what you are saying in terms of the need for for the face of our politics to change really is the idea behind the 25% quota, where we want to put it quite clearly, out there to say it's our constitutional right as young women to actually run for office, be voted and vote others. And then number two, we also need to demystify some of these, so-called cultural, traditional perceptions around the roles that young women are supposed to play. Because ideally, we are supposed to be seen in our kitchens taking care of children, whether we have them or not, is an expectation. But we are saying, as a society, we need to acknowledge the fact that the role of a young woman is far beyond just, their choice to be in a kitchen. We actually need to be around the table making decisions for our country, for the world. So the 25% quota demand in itself to us, it's very political in terms of how we also want to challenge, norms and beliefs around what young women can do and what they cannot do.
Vongai, as a young woman, why should we vote you into power? You just heard your sisters talk about how it's important for young women to be able, but do you really feel like Hatfield is going to be confident to vote for you? Why?
Okay, thank you for that. Nyari, to be honest with you, Dandan's going to talk about because number one, I'm the young girl, Pamba Pedu.
Right.
And I resonate with much of the things that are happening now because they affect me daily.
Right.
Each and every day before I go to school, ndotofana umuka kuma 4 o'clock, kuti ndonobata queue. Ekuti ndonochera mvura.
Right.
And the sad thing is that yes, you see, and
and
we've got slay queens, but not one of yes.
Okay.
And when I'm coming from school, I go to weekend schools, and we've got late night discussions. Kuti ndizofamba murima, kuti ndiende kumba, it's a dangerous path. So I think kuti if they vote for us, our problems, because these problems, they are affecting us mainly, us as the young people, because we're the ones who have to do all of the work, Pamba. So if they vote us if they vote us in office, then they're guaranteed, you know what, my gates, my streets, my taps, and then we'll be having everything.
My young women are kuti, we know our own realities. Carol has spoken as well and said there are enough young women out there, contrary to what we hear. What do you think? I know I asked you earlier on, do you feel like some of your colleagues are ready to come on board if the ground was level to participate in politics?
Definitely.
Why do you say that?
Because what's making them not to come is that number one, there's issue there's social media bullying, there's online bullying that goes on. I remember when I left the political party that I was in and it said that I'm going to be running as an independent, I received a lot of backlash and a lot of online bullying. So my colleagues, my friends, they can't handle that. So how do you manage to do that?
Right, yeah.
So if we remove some of these barriers that the current political field is having, then definitely they'll come on board. If we remove the violence, if you remove of the patriarchy, of the ageism, they'll definitely come.
And I think readiness, Nyari, should not be an issue because this is the excuse that we get from political parties.
Exactly.
This is the excuse that we get, from politicians who've been there since, independence. To say, young people are not yet ready, but really that's not the question.
Right.
The issue is it's their constitutional right to be there. Then if we provide that opportunity for them to be there,
right.
honestly, things around, how do we support them, the training that we need to do with them, the coaching, the mentorship, they need to come on board. So we then facilitate that they occupy those positions, and we are doing the best that we can, to ensure that they have the necessary knowledge and skills.
Ladies, time is never going to be on our side. Carol, in 10 seconds in closing, what is it that you want to say about the 25% quota system for young women and women in general?
Okay, what I'm going to say to the women is that nobody's ever going to come and say, here's your 25%, here's your 50%. We have the power. If you look what Glanis has said, we have the numbers, we are 52%. We need to take our power and get what is ours. Our constitution says 50%, we should get 50%.
That is from Carol.
And for me, we should not give an excuse that we are not able to do it as young women because we've never done it before. We just need to jump on board, occupy those positions, and then ask for what other tools do we need to be able to do this job perfectly. So yes, we can do it as young women.
Vongai.
Let us be active citizens. You are never too young to lead. You're never too young to run. And, get on with it.
Amazing stuff. We heard it for ourselves viewers, and I think there's so much to be said about young women participation, women political participation, and I'm hoping that we can continue with the discussion at some point. From me, Nyari Mashayamombe, it's goodbye for now. Keep watching Identities.